Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan John joining you for this edition of Nate at 8. Thankfully, enjoying some gorgeous weather today and much calmer conditions across the Ohio Valley. Blue skies and sunshine, a lot of it as we went throughout the day. And the quiet weather continues tonight. We'll spot likely a few more clouds in the mix, but the dry weather will likely hold overnight. By tomorrow morning, we do have a chance for some showers returning, but it's going to be primarily tomorrow afternoon and evening that will track more showers and thunderstorms moving back into the area. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in for this edition of Nate at 8. Again, coming up, what we're going to be talking about tonight, well, thankfully, again, remaining quiet and likely dry, but the rain does return tomorrow. And yes, unfortunately, that potential for severe weather is there tomorrow afternoon and evening. So we're going to be diving in and mapping out what was coming our way here, even over the next couple of days with your future cast ahead coming up on this edition of Nate at 8. So starting off, well, we're keeping a close eye on radar, and thankfully this is it. And this is a great sight to see as we're not tracking any precipitation going throughout this evening, and we're not going to be tracking likely any precipitation overnight. Again, by tomorrow morning is when we could spot a shower moving in, and really we're going to be rooting for that, and we're going to break it further down why we want to be rooting for that here coming up in just a minute. But of course, really not only focusing on some quiet conditions this evening, but also, the recovery effort as well at this point. Thankfully, the weather cooperating with the recovery effort going throughout the day. And this is a look at power outages as of earlier this afternoon at 5 o'clock via poweroutage.us. So, not exactly, but roughly about 24 hours later, right, from those roughly right around there, 24 hours after we saw those storms roll through. About 5 o'clock here this afternoon, power outages were still totaling about 35,000. Now, numbers likely since 5 o'clock have gone down some, even leading up to 8 o'clock this evening. Likely the number's still dropping, but at least as a 5 o'clock where it stood, still dealing with a lot of power outages in some counties. This is just where we saw the most extensive damage, especially looking from Harrison, Jefferson, Brooke County, the hardest hit counties. The hardest hit was Brooke County, still dealing with power outages over 8,000, and earlier was closer to 9,000. So certainly still seeing some improvements in Brooke County, but just dealing with still a lot in terms of the percentages is still roughly 70% of the county without power as of 5 o'clock this afternoon. At Jefferson County, it's closer to about a third. It's closer to that mark at a little over 30%, and then about 40% at Harrison County. So in terms of percentages, that's the highest percentages in our areas, Harrison, Jefferson, and Brooke County in terms of power outages. And that's still where we're seeing a lot of power outages going into this evening as well. And again, that's just where we saw the more of the extensive wind damage in our area. But certainly, give credit to the crews. They're working around the clock and really hard to repair the power. I know some of us still left into the dark going this evening, and I understand, I'm sure some of us feeling frustrated about it, but crews working very hard around the clock, long hours. And again, keep in mind, yesterday, we saw in the wake of these storms over 80,000 of us without power. So, crews have been working hard to restore over half of that at this point in a matter of 24 hours. So certainly hats off to those working the long hours, and certainly our thoughts are still with them as they continue to restore power as we go throughout this evening and even into tomorrow. Also joining us this evening on YouTube saying good evening. Thank you very much for yesterday. You're welcome. You're truly a superstar for keeping us safe. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say there, Austin. I appreciate that. Drew joining us this evening on Facebook. Good evening to you. How are you doing? I'm doing well. Hopefully you are as well. Drew saying today was 1,000% better than yesterday. It sure was, wasn't it? That was great. By the way, I had a feeling that the storm was probably a derecho since the winds really picked up in a hurry and not quite reaching the qualifications of a derecho, Drew. The National Weather Service office at Pittsburgh actually commented on that. The wind speed's similar to that in the event of a derecho, but it's just not quite reaching the qualifications because we have to have winds sustained to that extent over a long area, just not quite reaching the qualifications to be classified as a derecho, but still, yes, in that kind of wind damage that we associate with a derecho, yes, certainly dealing with that extensive wind damage from straight line winds into our area. And that's what a lot of the storm surveys today by the National Weather Service office of Pittsburgh did not give an estimate on wind speeds yet that I've seen for damage Jefferson County or Brooke County, but they did assess some damage in those locations and just concluded that the damage that they were looking at was from straight line winds. And that was really anticipated that most, if not all, of the wind damage in our area was from straight line winds. And, if you noticed yesterday, I know there were some reports of this, but if you noticed yesterday, if you lost power, how just quickly you lost power, right? Some of us, may still have had the lights flicker and then lost it, but a lot of us, it just was, like a click, right? Just out, just completely out. And, the straight line winds can just come through almost like that bulldozer and just plow stuff over with those high winds as they move through the area. And we saw some of the highest winds move through Tuscarawas, Harrison, as well as into Jefferson, Carroll, Brooke, Hancock County. And, I think the worst of it likely was into Harrison, Jefferson, Brooke County in terms of the wind damage. And again, that's still where we're seeing some of the highest power outages at this hour. The National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh did estimate some wind speeds from damage in Western PA. They estimated wind speeds in parts of Western PA, even up to about 90, 95 miles per hour. So, even when we're dealing with straight line winds, often most of us are thinking of extensive wind damage from tornadoes, right? But you can get these straight line winds to still produce wind speeds to the extent of a weak tornado, EF1, even EF0. EF0 or EF1. So even a weak tornado, these wind speeds that can come from these straight line winds can be equivalent to even a weak tornado for us here to the Ohio Valley. So certainly still a very serious matter from those wind speeds that we had as of yesterday here into the area. And I think, to some extent, I think it can be historically significant in terms of the amount of wind damage that we had in our area and those wind speeds for us. Certainly something that we don't typically deal with every year. And I know the National Weather Service office of Pittsburgh had some comparison to this of the wind damage we saw in 2020. So I think it has been some time since we've seen this widespread of wind damage from a line moving through for at least several years for us here into the Ohio Valley. So I know I'm getting on sidetracked here, but yeah, I just wanted to touch on that before we started to dive into things. And Drew asking how bad will it be tomorrow and Friday? Yes, we're going to dive into that right now, starting off with your future cast of the timing, catch up on a couple more comments, and then we'll jump into future cast. Lola saying, good evening. Glad all the storms have passed. So blessed not to be as affected in Toronto. Prayers for all those still battling the aftermath. Absolutely, Lola. Thoughts and prayers are with those, still facing the, still getting the cleanup effort, those still without power. And of course, those restoring power as well. Still thinking of those out there working hard to restore power. Drew says, saw 20 power crews, stage are ready to go, restore powers. Yeah, and I don't know if even you had this case as well, but I was spotting some different power companies as well that I was not familiar with. So I assume that, AEP is even getting help from other power companies in surrounding states, just some that I had not even been familiar with that I saw some crews out today. So yeah, crews locally working hard, and even crews some of our neighbors and surrounding states likely even coming in to help with the restoration effort here going throughout today. Jay's joining us saying Church Street in Wintersville still without power. Thank you, the workers trying to get everything square. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying too. Hats off to them. I know some of us can get kind of frustrated with it, but certainly, they're working round the clock and very hard to restore power for us. And again, they've, already seeing numbers cut more than half in a matter of 24 hours. A lot of us have had that power restored already. I know some of us still in the dark, but I assure you the crews are working very hard to get power restored for all of us here. And, the damage is extensive. I mean, unfortunately, so, it is a case where crews are working around the clock, but it still could be some time yet for some of us to get our power restored, just to the extent of the damage and how remote some of the damage is as well. I know we touched on that during News 9 Live at 5, just noting that how rural some of the damage was. Crews is struggling to even reach access to some of these locations. Applying drones, helicopters, different means to be able to assess the damage in more remote locations to be able to repair that power. Austin, talking about yesterday when you went live during the tornado warning, that many bright flashes with the tower cam, that was a horrendous sight. If you didn't tune into our live coverage, or I know a lot of us losing power around that time as well, might not have been able to watch, but we were able to have our tower cam up yesterday, and it's not quite to the extent of what we were able to have on air. Let me see if it's still. No, this is going to be from today. I'm not sure if it's going to reach back yesterday, but it was a good try. But yeah, we had the tower came up yesterday, and during that tornado warning, which again, the main concern was just the very high winds, and certainly with the damage, warranted into portions of Jefferson and Brooke County. And seeing the tower cam just shake violently, guide wires shaking violently. Multiple power flashes spotted as transformers are blown and the trees falling onto the lines. And it was a very scary sight, certainly to be seen on our tower cam, that we were able to keep up live during that coverage of the tornado warning. Losing power here at the station, but thankfully have that generator to back up power to be able to keep us on air, as keep that tower cam live feeding as well, to be able to show those conditions as they move through portions of Jefferson County and into Brooks. Certainly a horrendous sight, that's for sure. Mike, great job to all the linemen out there working hard. Absolutely, Mike. I couldn't agree more. Hats off to all those linemen out there. I know, putting in some long hours and hard work. I know they are. Great job during tornado coverage, Nate. You were right on. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that as always. Rich saying it was bad yesterday. I saw a small video of Harrison Central's baseball field. I couldn't see the wall. It was like a wall of very dense fog, but it was rain. Coming down hard. The rain coming down hard and the winds really whipping, really howling. I know that was probably a good way to describe those winds. I don't know if it was the same from your experience, but howling. I mean, I think it's the best way to put it. Those winds were so high that it's just that howling, almost that roaring sound too, which a lot of people describe in the event of a tornado with those winds. It's almost like a train sound, or the howling, or a rumble, or it's multiple ways. I know people describe it in different ways. I would say kind of that howling sound with those winds that high, and scary. It was very scary to see. And have not seen that kind of wind speeds here at the station before. I know I've been here since 2019. I haven't seen that high of winds locally near the Steubenville area since I've been here. I think this is some of the worst wind damage. And again, the Weather Service office in Pittsburgh was comparing it close to 2020. So, I think this is some of the worst damage, if not the worst we've had in at least several years here into the Ohio Valley with this widespread of wind damage. All right, everyone. So let's jump back into it. So we're going to start to jump into mapping out the next couple of days. Unfortunately, yes, we can have some thunderstorms move back in for tomorrow as well as into Friday. So let's jump in. We'll start off with talking about timing, and then we're going to jump into that potential for severe weather and any impacts that we're going to be watching for. So starting off with the timing, and again, tonight it's looking quiet. We're likely not dealing with too much precipitation. Now, we can spot some rain tomorrow morning, and this would be great. This is what we want to see. If we want to get as much cloud cover and as much rain as we can get tomorrow morning into midday. This is what we want. We don't want a situation yesterday where we had a good amount of sunshine into midday, dry conditions. That's not what we want. We want as much cloud cover as we can get, and if we can get some showers, that's even better. Now, I do think we can spot more cloud cover this time around than what we had yesterday. I do think, though, that mostly dry conditions will hold. Futurecast may be overdoing this a bit, and even if we were to have a shower move in, around the morning commute, we're likely drying back up into midday. So I don't think we're dealing with much precipitation to help curb that risk for severe weather going into the afternoon and evening. But I do think what we're going to hope more for and what we're going to be looking out for is this cloud cover. Hopefully, we can deal with a lot more cloud cover from the morning into the afternoon. And remember, the sun out, the storm's out. So we don't want, we want as little sun as we can get. And if we can manage to see a little bit of sunshine and a lot more cloud cover, then that can help lower that risk for severe weather into the afternoon and evening. This is what we're going to want to see. If we can build that cloud cover, we can help build that layer of warm air aloft. That can help what we call cap our convection, and that's what we're looking for. That's what we want to see going into the afternoon and evening. So that is the hope, is that we can get enough cloud cover to keep that severe risk low in the afternoon and evening. Unfortunately, as it stands now, there's still that potential for some severe weather. Our temperatures will be warmer tomorrow. You're going to notice temperatures, they're going to be warm, back mid-lower 80s. You're also going to likely notice tomorrow it's going to be a bit muggy. So much like what we did have before the storms rolled in yesterday, you may have noticed it started to turn a bit muggy on us. And we can notice that a similar scenario where it starts to turn a bit muggy with these warmer temperatures into Thursday afternoon. And we will be watching then as we go into the afternoon hours. This is when we're going to watch for the showers and thunderstorms developing. They will carry then over into the evening. And while we will likely have some showers and a thunderstorm continue into early Thursday night, this is the point where the severe risk will likely start to wane as we get closer towards sunset and then into early Thursday night. So this is more afternoon into evening would be the time frame to watch for these scattered showers and thunderstorms. Again, unfortunately, some of which can be severe. And then we do look mostly dry. I still would watch for at least a few showers Thursday night into Friday morning, and then we'll spot the next round of some scattered showers and thunderstorms redeveloping Friday afternoon, continuing into Friday evening. And unfortunately, even for that round on Friday, we could be dealing with some severe thunderstorms as well. So it is unfortunate that the next 2 days we deal with that potential for severe weather into the afternoon and evening. Now, by Saturday, we're likely not going to be dealing with any severe threat, and I don't think even much in terms of thunderstorms, but we will be dealing with some rain to start off the weekend on Saturday, and it's cool as well. Those temperatures likely may get just into the 60s with this rain on Saturday, and we may even spot a few showers Sunday. So unfortunately, the forecast is looking a bit more wet this weekend than what we initially thought earlier into the week. That's unfortunate for any weekend plans, but I will say, while we still unfortunately have to dodge some rain this weekend, it does not look like we have to deal with a threat for severe weather this weekend. So at least there's that silver lining on Saturday and Sunday. While yes, we may have to dodge some more rain going throughout the weekend, it doesn't look like we have to worry about any severe threat for the weekend. But here near term, unfortunately, yes. Now our severe weather outlook for tomorrow. Now, if you recall from what we had yesterday, we were under that enhanced risk. That's the orange. So we had the potential yesterday for numerous severe thunderstorms, and it certainly came to fruition where that threat is more widespread, right? Thankfully, this time around, the severe weather risk is still there, but the risk is overall lower with respect to what we had for yesterday, where hopefully the threat is going to stay more hit or miss rather than just hit, which really most of the area, I will say mostly locations south of I-70 towards Tyler, Wetzel, Noble, Monroe, not as much wind damage, but for a lot of us, we dealt with quite extensive wind damage. But hopefully for tomorrow, while yes, unfortunately, we still could deal with some severe thunderstorms, that hopefully it's going to be more scattered in nature and not a widespread risk like what we had for yesterday. The primary concern does look to remain damaging winds. So the primary concern does not look to change from what we had yesterday going into Thursday. Damaging winds would be the primary concern. Large hail does remain a possibility. A tornado, maybe, but again, that's on the lower end of the threats in terms of the overall, how high of a risk are we dealing with? Well, that would be on the lower end of that going into tomorrow afternoon, evening. Then for Friday, yes, like I mentioned, unfortunately, even into Friday afternoon, evening, as you can see, under the level 1, marginal. Now, this means that threat likely staying more isolated. And unfortunately, though, that potential is there. This is also a good graphic to break down the different levels. So again, keep in mind with what we had, this is what we had yesterday. with that level 3, that orange. That's what we had, level 3, with the enhanced risk in our area, where again the threat more numerous. Those storms, remember, well, we saw how persistent they were, right? Maintaining that strength through a good portion of the area, and the intensity of it. Dealing with the intensity, especially there from that portion of the line that moved through Tuscarawas, Harrison, Jefferson, and into Brook. And again, dealing with, while it says several, we dealt with numerous reports of wind damage. So you'll notice just how this varies with the different levels of the severe weather outlook. And again, we're not under the level 3 for tomorrow, winter, or level 2, where we're hoping for that threat to remain more scattered, short-lived, the intensity to remain more isolated, and overall, hopefully not dealing with nearly as much wind damage going into tomorrow afternoon and evening as what we had for yesterday. And then by Friday, again, you'll see we're on the level 1 marginal, where the threat hopefully even staying more isolated and short-lived, with limited intensity, and that's what we're hoping for into Friday. Well, yes, unfortunately, the severe weather risk is present over the next 2 days. That still, we're hopeful that the overall impacts are lower with respect to what we had for yesterday over the next couple of days, where hopefully the severe weather risk overall is going to be more isolated, scattered than more widespread, like what we had for yesterday. And again, these next 2 days, what to root for in the morning, and this is a test we all could do at home. What we want to see: cloud cover. What we want to see, while likely not much, is rain in the morning. That would be even better, but I don't think we're getting much of that in the morning and midday hours, is rain. But the more rain we can get, the better. The more cloud cover we get, the better. I think that's the one thing to really root for. If we want to root for cloud cover, we want a lot of cloud cover, as much as we can get Thursday morning into midday, and we want as much cloud cover as we can get Friday morning into midday. And, if you're noticing the sun is still out and there's not much clouds to be had from morning, midday hours the next couple of days, that's, I would say, it's always not 100%, correlation to causation, right? It's not 100%, if the sun's out, it's going to storm. But typically, the more sun we get, the better the odds that within that afternoon and evening will follow up with the potential for some strong, severe thunderstorms. So this is a test, we could do at home, sun out, storms out. And if we're dealing with more clouds, then it can start to cut off at least that potential for severe weather following into the afternoon and evening. So that is what, at this point, we're going to be rooting for. I think there is potential for more cloud cover the next couple of days in these morning and midday hours with respect to what we had yesterday. And I do think that is our hope, to help keep the overall risk lower the next 2 afternoon and evenings with respect to what we had for yesterday. I know it's not good news to deal with another round of potentially severe weather. We still obviously want to be taking this seriously and have preparations. If you do have your power back, now's the time, to charge up your devices, any power banks you have, any batteries, and, charge stuff up, make sure, ready to go in the event we're dealing with more wind damage and potentially more, unfortunately, power outages here from into the latter part of Thursday as well as the latter part of Friday. And, if not, I know there's some locations. I know we mentioned this during the news. If you go onto our website, WTOB9.com, I know that we did several stories that highlighted some areas, some locations to be able to go to charge up your devices if you're still without power, and seek some of those resources, as I know some of us still are left in the dark, unfortunately, going into the overnight hours. But yeah, find ways any way you can, whether it's even heading over to family, friend's house that may have power while you're still out, and take the time, if you can, leading up to tomorrow afternoon, to be prepared in the event that this prolongs the power outage or causes more power outages. I know it's unfortunate. I know we don't want to hear it, but that is the unfortunate reality of the next 2 days, is that potential for more severe weather. But again, not anticipating overall as high of a risk, and not anticipating overall as widespread of damage as what we had for today, the next 2 days. But still, could we deal with more wind damage? Unfortunately, yes, that potential is there Thursday afternoon, evening, and Friday afternoon and evening. It's there, unfortunately. But again, not anticipating it to be as widespread as what we had for yesterday. So that's what we're holding on to. And again, hopefully we're dealing with enough cloud cover to keep that risk overall much lower as well in the afternoon and evening. And of course, stay tuned for the latest going through tomorrow. You can stay tuned with Chief Meteorologist Jeff Exline tomorrow morning. He'll give you the latest on how conditions are setting up going into the afternoon. Keep in mind as well, if we do happen to see conditions setting up that are favorable for more severe thunderstorms, keep in mind that what you'll likely see at first is that severe thunderstorm watch. And remember, the watch is just placed there to give you a heads up. That's what the watch is there for. The watch is there to say, heads up, be prepared to seek shelter. Be prepared if, these winds could get bad again with these storms. Just be prepared to potentially lose power. It's just there to be prepared and to be ready to execute your plan of action, right? So, think of where you're going to seek shelter. Think of, okay, where do I put my flashlights or, my batteries and stuff in the event that I'm losing power? What am I going to do in the event if I have to lose power again? It's really a time to plan. And the warning, and then once the warning is issued, that's when the threat's more imminent. That's where we could be dealing with some high winds moving in or large hail, or, in the event of a tornado warning, a possible tornado, right? Depending on what the warning is. But the warning is when the threat's imminent, where it's, going to occur shortly, or it's occurring right now. And that's the difference between the watch and the warning. So again, watch is just there to say, hey, it's time to prepare. It's time to make a plan to be able to execute that plan in the event that a warning is issued. Warning is when the threat is imminent or ongoing. So hopefully that helps alleviate some confusion some of you may have between what is the difference between a watch and warning. And certainly, if a watch happens to be issued tomorrow afternoon, then certainly be on high alert for the potential for some more severe thunderstorms moving in that, yes, could unfortunately produce some more wind damage coming our way. These storms are terrible. I know. Yes, it is unfortunate. Lola saying no round 2, please. I know. I really hope it doesn't come to fruition. Again, we're really going to be hoping that we can get enough cloud cover to keep that risk overall low into the latter part of Thursday and Friday. We're going to root for as much cloud cover as we can get. Have a great night. See you on the 11th. Sounds good, Drew. How much rain will we get on Saturday? Yeah, we're going to keep an eye out for it. We'll keep an eye out for the rain amounts going into the weekend, and I don't think we're dealing with the high risk of flooding, but it is something else we'll have to watch for. Maybe something more isolated in terms of flooding concerns going through the weekend. And the rain Saturday, hopefully most of that's on the lighter side to where we're not piling up anything excessive. But that is something else that we're going to watch for here over the next couple of days, Drew, and we'll narrow down how much rain we could end up with going through the weekend as well, after we really concentrating on these storms the next couple of days. But that is something we're going to be watching for as well, in terms of how much rain we could pile up as we go through the weekend, and if we could be dealing with any flooding concerns then as well going into next week. But as it stands now, hopefully that risk would stay more isolated or low, but it is something else we're going to watch for. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. And again, I know some of us still left in the dark. It's unfortunate. Hopefully everyone that's still in the dark watching this edition of Nate at 8, hopefully power comes back on shortly for you going into tonight. And again, thankfully the weather's still quiet tonight. So crews, I'm sure they're working around the clock. So, thankfully the weather not going to impact crews tonight. And I think overall tomorrow morning as well, it's still fairly quiet. So crews should be able to have tomorrow morning for the most part as well, outside of maybe a shower to be able to continue to work on restoring power across the area. And then, yes, unfortunately, we're going to have all eyes on the potential for more thunderstorms for the latter part of tomorrow. So make sure to stay tuned. Coming up, News 9 at 10 on Fox 9, News 9 tonight at 11 for the latest. Keep in mind as well, if you're tuning into this and you're still without power and you haven't been able to watch the newscast, keep in mind WTOV9.com, the WTOV9 app on your smartphone. You can watch us live through that, through the website, through the app. So even if you're without even if you're without power, and with a TV and cable, if you still have reception on your phone to be able to, if you're watching this, right, you got reception on your phone, you'd be able to live stream then our newscasts as well that way. If you head over to WTOB9.com, or what's more mobile friendly would be the WTOB9 app, and you'd be able to watch our newscast there as well. Again, just something to emphasize, because again, I know a lot of us, if we want to watch the newscast, right, and we can't, we're still in the dark. That's a good way to do it, and make sure to, tell your friends, family as well, if they want to stay tuned for the latest and have been wanting to watch and they can. It's a great tool to have to be able to still watch us, even if the power were to go out, and a great tool to have, even in the event of yesterday, right, when we had that tornado warning, the power went out, and then I know a lot of us left in the dark and weren't able to watch the coverage, right, obviously if the TV goes out and the cable, but if you still have reception, that's a good way to still be able to see it. All right, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Nate at 8. Of course, I'll catch you coming up tomorrow for that next edition of Nate at 8. Hopefully we're not tracking much, but of course, if we are, I'll be right here tracking any severe thunderstorms moving back into the area. So make sure to stay tuned for the latest for that. And as always, you can catch me on Nathan Schutt News 9. That's my Facebook page. So you can catch the latest there on my Facebook page leading up to tomorrow. And of course, stay tuned even tomorrow morning with Chief Meteorologist Jeff Exline, News 9 Sunrise midday. He'll give you the latest on how things are looking going into the afternoon. And I'll be right back here tomorrow afternoon, evening to keep you updated on any severe weather coming our way as we go through tomorrow. And the latest then of the potential severe weather again on Friday. All right, everyone. Have a great and safe night. I'll see you on the next edition of Nate at 8.